The hangar at Davis-Monthan Air Force Base in Tucson, Arizona was quiet at 5:30 hours. Most of the maintenance crews wouldn't arrive for another hour, but Technical Sergeant Rachel Morrison preferred these early morning hours. The silence, the solitude, and the satisfying work of keeping America's warplanes ready for combat. Rachel stood on a maintenance platform, her hands deep inside the gun bay of an A-10 Thunderbolt II, carefully inspecting the GAU-8 Avenger rotary cannon. The massive 7-barrel gun was the heart and soul of the Warthog, capable of firing armor-piercing rounds that could shred enemy tanks. It was a beast of a weapon, and Rachel treated it with the respect it deserved. Her hands were stained with gun oil and carbon residue. Her dark hair was pulled back in a tight bun, and she wore standard-issue coveralls that had seen better days. Sweat already dotted her forehead even in the cool morning air. This was detailed, physical work, and Rachel had been at it since before dawn. She was so focused on her task that she didn't hear the footsteps approaching until a voice called out. "Hey, you there?" Rachel looked down from the platform. A young pilot stood below, wearing a crisp flight suit with captain's bars on his shoulders. He looked fresh, confident, and annoyed. "Yes, sir," Rachel replied, not moving from her position. The captain's eyes swept over her dismissively. "I need to know when my aircraft will be ready. This is my bird, tail number 917, and I've got a training sortie scheduled for 800. Rachel glanced at the tail number on the A-10 she was working on. Sure enough, 917. "Sir, this aircraft is undergoing a scheduled maintenance inspection of the gun system. It'll be ready by 1400 hours. The captain's face flushed. "That's not acceptable. I have a mission. I need this bird in 3 hours, not 8 hours. "With respect, sir, the maintenance schedule doesn't change based on convenience. This inspection is required before the aircraft can be cleared for flight." The pilot stepped closer to the platform, his jaw tight. "Listen, sweetheart, I don't think you understand how this works. I'm a combat pilot. You're a mechanic. I need my plane ready, and you're going to make that happen." Rachel felt the familiar tightness in her chest that came with being talked down to, but she kept her voice level. "Sir, I understand you have a mission, but safety protocols exist for a reason. This weapon system fires 3,900 rounds per minute. If there's a malfunction because we rushed the inspection, it could cost you your life." "I'll take that risk," the captain said dismissively. "Now, are you going to do your job, or do I need to talk to your supervisor?" Before Rachel could respond, another voice echoed through the hangar. "Captain Morrison doesn't have a supervisor in this hangar, Lieutenant. She is the supervisor." Both Rachel and the young pilot turned. Chief Master Sergeant Tom Walters, the senior enlisted leader of the maintenance group, was walking toward them. His weathered face showed both amusement and irritation. "Chief," the pilot said, confusion crossing his features. "I was just trying to get clarification on when." "Captain Morrison is the officer in charge of weapons systems maintenance for the entire 355th Wing," Chief Walters interrupted. "And when she tells you your aircraft will be ready at 1400, that's when it'll be ready." The young pilot's eyes went wide. He looked back up at Rachel, really seeing her for the first time, or rather seeing past his assumptions for the first time. "Sir, I mean, ma'am, I thought," he stammered. Rachel climbed down from the platform, wiping her hands on a rag. Now at ground level, the small gold oak leaves on her collar were visible beneath the grime and oil stains. Captain's bars. The same rank as the pilot, but in the Air Force's officer structure, she had seniority based on time and grade. "You thought I was an enlisted maintainer," Rachel said calmly. "It's an easy mistake when someone's covered in gun oil at 5:30 in the morning." "Ma'am, I apologize. I should have checked before I—" Rachel held up a hand. "What's your name, Lieutenant?" The pilot stiffened. "Second Lieutenant Jackson Reeves, ma'am." So he was a second lieutenant, not a captain. The single bar on his flight suit had looked like captain's bars in the dim hangar light. He was brand new, probably fresh out of flight school. "Lieutenant Reeves, how long have you been flying the A-10? Rachel asked. 3 months, ma'am. I just finished mission qualification training." "Then let me give you some free advice. The people who maintain your aircraft are the reason you come home alive. Enlisted or officer, experienced or new, they deserve your respect. Not because of their rank, but because they hold your life in their hands every time you step into that cockpit." Reeves' face had gone from red with anger to pale with embarrassment. "Yes, ma'am, you're absolutely right. I was out of line." "Your sortie has been rescheduled to 1500 hours," Chief Walters added. "Check with the ops desk." "Yes, Chief, ma'am." Reeves snapped a salute to Rachel, which she returned, and then he walked quickly out of the hangar. After he left, Chief Walters shook his head. "That kid's got a lot to learn." "Don't they all?" Rachel said with a tired smile. She looked back up at the A-10. "Though he's not entirely wrong, I could rush this inspection and probably have the bird ready in time." "But you won't," Walters said. "But I won't," Rachel confirmed, "because probably isn't good enough when someone's life is on the line." Walters nodded approvingly. "That's why you're the best weapons officer we've got, Captain, even if you do insist on doing the grunt work yourself." "I can't ask my airmen to do work I'm not willing to do," Rachel replied. "Besides, I like it. It's honest work, simple, you can see the results." "Not like the politics of being an officer?" Walters asked with a knowing look. Rachel grimaced, "Something like that." The chief studied her for a moment. "You know, when I first met you 8 years ago, you were a cocky young airman who thought she knew everything." "I was insufferable," Rachel agreed. "You were determined," Walters corrected. "You knew what you wanted, and you weren't going to let anyone tell you that you couldn't have it." Rachel thought back to those early days. She had been so young, so convinced that hard work and skill would be enough. She had learned differently. "Things were simpler then," she said quietly. "Were they, or were you just too stubborn to notice they weren't?" Rachel laughed, but there was little humor in it. "Maybe both." Walters put a hand on her shoulder. "You've got that look again, the one you get when you're thinking too much about the past." "Just remembering why I prefer working with machines instead of people," Rachel said. "Machines are easier. They don't judge, they don't assume, they don't disappoint." Walters paused. "But they also don't grow, don't learn, and don't make the job worth doing." "When did you become a philosopher, Chief?" "When I got old enough that people actually listened to me." He gestured toward the A-10. "Finish your inspection, but when you're done, come by my office. There's something I need to talk to you about." "Is it about the promotion board?" Rachel asked. Walter's face gave nothing away. "Just come by when you're done." After he left, Rachel climbed back onto the platform and returned to her work. Her hands moved with practiced precision, checking each component, each connection, each potential point of failure. This was what she was good at. This was where she felt in control. But as she worked, her mind wandered back to the encounter with Lieutenant Reeves, the assumption that she was enlisted because she was doing manual work, the dismissive sweetheart, the expectation that she would simply do what he wanted because he was a pilot and she was, what? Just a mechanic. It wasn't the first time. It wouldn't be the last. Rachel had spent her entire career fighting assumptions, fighting to prove herself, fighting to be taken seriously in a field that still, even now, didn't always welcome women. She had won most of those fights. She had earned her rank, her position, and the respect of the people who mattered. But some days, she was just tired of fighting. Rachel finished the inspection by 7:30, 2 hours ahead of schedule. The gun system was perfect, as she knew it would be. She documented everything, signed off on the maintenance logs, and climbed down from the platform. The hangar was filling up now. Her maintenance team was arriving, greeting her with nods and waves. These were her people. They knew her, respected her, trusted her judgment. Among them was Senior Airman Ashley Chen, one of Rachel's best technicians. Ashley approached with 2 cups of coffee. "Morning, ma'am. Thought you could use this." "You're a lifesaver, Chen." Rachel accepted the cup gratefully. "Heard you had a run-in with one of the new pilots," Ashley said carefully. News traveled fast on a military base. "Nothing I haven't dealt with before," Rachel replied. "He didn't know who you were." "He saw coveralls and assumed," Rachel said with a shrug. "Can't entirely blame him." Ashley frowned. "Yes, you can. He should have checked before being a jerk." Rachel smiled. She appreciated the loyalty. Learn anything from it. "That pilots can be idiots. That assumptions are dangerous, in maintenance and in life." Rachel took a sip of her coffee. "Speaking of which, how's your application for officer training school coming?" Ashley's face lit up. "I got accepted. I was going to tell you today. I leave in 6 weeks." "That's outstanding, Chen. Congratulations." I wouldn't have even applied if you hadn't encouraged me, Ashley said. You showed me that someone like me could be an officer. Someone like you, Rachel asked. A woman working on weapons, not afraid to get her hands dirty. Ashley paused. You're kind of a legend, ma'am, you know that, right? Rachel felt uncomfortable with the praise. I'm just doing my job. You're doing a lot more than that. You're changing things. After Ashley returned to work, Rachel made her way to Chief Walter's office. She knocked on the doorframe and he waved her in. Close the door, he said. Rachel did, a knot forming in her stomach. This was serious. The promotion board results came in, Walters said without preamble. You made major. Rachel let out a breath she didn't know she was holding. I made it. Not only did you make it, you were #1 on the list in your career field. Below the zone. That's exceptional, Rachel. Below the zone meant she was being promoted early ahead of her peers. It was a significant achievement. That's incredible, Rachel said, still processing. It is, and it comes with a new assignment. Walters slid a folder across his desk. You've been selected to take command of a maintenance squadron at Nellis Air Force Base in Nevada. It's a large unit, high visibility, and a stepping stone to bigger things. Rachel opened the folder, scanning the assignment details. It was indeed a prestigious position, the kind of assignment that could set her up for a successful career leading to senior leadership. But it also meant leaving Davis-Monthan, leaving her team, leaving the hands-on work she loved. When, she asked. 90 days. Rachel sat back in the chair, the coffee suddenly tasting bitter in her mouth. This is what you've worked for, Walters said gently. This is the recognition you've earned. I know. But... Rachel looked at the chief, this man who had been her mentor, her advocate, and her friend for nearly a decade. But I'll be pushing paper instead of turning wrenches, she said. I'll be dealing with politics and bureaucracy instead of actually doing the work. You'll be leading hundreds of airmen, shaping careers, making decisions that affect mission success at the highest levels. I know that's important, I do, You just wish you could stay in the hangar forever, Walters finished. Is that naive? It's honest, he leaned forward. Rachel, you're one of the best officers I've ever worked with. You have a gift for leadership, for mentorship, and for seeing the bigger picture. But you're also stubborn as hell and you hide in technical work because it's safer than dealing with people. Rachel wanted to argue, but she knew he was right. You've got 90 days, Walters said. Use them, prepare your team, prepare yourself, and remember why you joined in the first place. As Rachel left his office and walked back through the hangar, she looked at the rows of A-10’s. These aircraft, these weapons systems, this work, it had been her life for so long. But Walters was right. She had joined for a bigger purpose. She just needed to remember what that was. Rachel Morrison hadn't always wanted to be in the Air Force. Growing up in rural Michigan, she had dreamed of being an engineer, of building things, of working with her hands to create something meaningful. Her father owned a small auto repair shop, and from the time Rachel could walk, she was in that garage watching him work. By age 10, she could change oil and replace brake pads. By 15, she could rebuild a carburetor. You've got the gift, her father used to say. The ability to understand how things work, how they fit together, that's worth more than any college degree. But Rachel wanted both. She wanted to understand the theory and the practice. She wanted to be an engineer. The problem was money. Her family didn't have any. Her father's shop made enough to get by, but there was nothing left over for college tuition. And Rachel's grades, while good, weren't scholarship material. When the Air Force recruiter came to her high school during her senior year, Rachel almost didn't attend the presentation. She had never considered military service. But something the recruiter said caught her attention. The Air Force will train you in cutting-edge technology and pay for your education. You'll work on aircraft that cost millions of dollars, learn skills that translate to six-figure civilian jobs, and serve your country at the same time. Rachel signed up the week after graduation. Basic training at Lackland Air Force Base in Texas was brutal. Not because Rachel couldn't handle the physical demands. She was strong from years of working in her father's shop, but because of the attitude she encountered. She was one of only 6 women in a flight of 50 trainees. And from day one, some of the male trainees made it clear they didn't think women belonged. This isn't a Girl Scout camp, one trainee, a guy named Miller, said during their first week. Some of us are going into real jobs, combat jobs. We don't need distractions. Rachel had ignored him. She focused on her training, exceeded every standard, and kept her head down. But Miller didn't let it go. He went out of his way to make her life difficult, sabotaging her locker displays so she'd fail inspections, spreading rumors that she was getting special treatment, mocking her during training exercises. The breaking point came during a group physical training session. They were doing pull-ups, a difficult exercise for anyone, but especially challenging for some of the women due to upper body strength differences. Rachel could do 8 pull-ups, more than most of the men in her flight, but Miller stood nearby, counting loudly and incorrectly. 1, 1, 1, he said each time Rachel pulled herself up, claiming her form was wrong, that she wasn't going high enough. Rachel dropped from the bar, her arms burning, and faced him. "You got a problem with me, say it to my face," she said. Miller smirked. "I got a problem with the Air Force lowering standards so girls can feel included. I'm doing the same exercises as you, meeting the same standards. For now, but when it matters, when we're deployed and lives are on the line, you'll be a liability." Rachel had wanted to hit him. Instead, she did something smarter. "Let's test that theory, you and me, full PT test, right now. Loser does the winner's chores for the rest of basic." Miller's friends whooped and hollered. He couldn't back down without losing face. "You're on." They did push-ups, sit-ups, pull-ups, and a timed run. Rachel beat Miller in everything except the run, where she came in only 3 seconds behind him. When it was over and Miller was red-faced and gasping for air, Rachel extended her hand. "Good effort," she said. Miller stared at her hand but didn't shake it. "This doesn't prove anything. It proves I earned my place here, same as you." Miller walked away without another word. He never apologized, never admitted he was wrong, but he stopped actively sabotaging her. And some of the other trainees who had been watching from the sidelines started treating her differently, with respect. Rachel graduated basic training and moved on to technical school at Shepherd Air Force Base in Texas, where she would learn aircraft armament systems. The course was intense. They learned how to load, maintain, and repair weapons systems on everything from fighters to bombers. Rachel excelled, finishing top of her class. Her first duty assignment was at A-10’s Air Base in South Korea. She was 19 years old, thousands of miles from home, working on F-16 Fighting Falcons. It was there that she met Chief Master Sergeant Tom Walters. Walters was the maintenance superintendent, a crusty veteran with 30 years of experience and zero tolerance for excuses. He was intimidating, demanding, and utterly fair. During her first week, Rachel made a mistake. She had misread a technical order and installed a missile launcher upside down. It was caught during inspection before the aircraft flew, but it was still a serious error. Walters called her into his office. "Airman Morrison, do you know what could have happened if that launcher had malfunctioned in flight?" "Yes, Chief, the pilot could have been killed." "That's right, the pilot could have been killed because you didn't follow the technical order correctly." He paused. "Why didn't you follow it correctly?" Rachel could have made excuses. She was new, she was tired, the technical order was confusing, but she knew excuses wouldn't help. "I rushed, Chief. I thought I knew what I was doing and I didn't double-check my work. It was my fault and it won't happen again." Walters studied her for a long moment. "You're right, it won't happen again, because I'm assigning you to work directly with me for the next month. You're going to learn these systems inside and out. And you're going to learn that in this career field, close enough isn't good enough. Perfect is the only acceptable standard." That month was the hardest and most valuable of Rachel's early career. Walters worked her to exhaustion. He questioned everything she did, made her explain every decision, and never accepted anything less than perfection. But he also taught her, really taught her, not just how to follow technical orders, but how to understand the systems themselves, how to think critically, how to troubleshoot, how to lead. "You've got potential, Morrison," Walters told her at the end of that month. "You're smart, you work hard, and you don't make excuses, but you need to decide what you want from this career." "I want to be the best at what I do," Rachel said. "Best technician or best leader?" "Can't I be both?" Walters smiled. "Yes, but it's harder. It means you can't just be good with machines, you have to be good with people too." Rachel spent 3 years at A-10’s, learning, growing, and proving herself. She deployed to Iraq twice, working in harsh conditions, under constant threat, keeping aircraft armed and ready for combat missions. It was during her second deployment that she saw combat up close. Her team was working on the flight line, loading munitions onto an A-10 when they came under rocket attack. The insurgent rockets were inaccurate, but deadly if they hit. Everyone scattered for cover, everyone except Rachel. She saw that one of her airmen, a young kid named Parker, had been knocked down by the blast concussion. He was dazed, exposed, unable to get to cover on his own. Rachel ran into the open, grabbed Parker, and dragged him to a protective bunker just as another rocket impacted where he had been lying. She had probably saved his life, but what stuck with Rachel wasn't the danger or the fear, it was the responsibility. She was responsible for her people, for their safety, for their success, for their lives. That realization changed something in her. When she returned from deployment, she applied for Airman Leadership School, the first step toward becoming a non-commissioned officer. She was 22 years old and already thinking about her future in ways she never had before. She was also thinking about becoming an officer. The suggestion came from Chief Walters, who had been promoted and reassigned to the same base Rachel was now stationed at, Davis-Monthan Air Force Base in Arizona. "You should apply for the commissioning program," Walters said during one of their mentoring sessions. "I don't have a degree," Rachel replied. "So get one, take night classes, online courses, the Air Force will pay for it." "Chief, I'm an enlisted airman, that's what I know." "You're more than that, you're a leader, and leaders need to be in positions where they can make the biggest impact." Rachel was skeptical. Officers came from different backgrounds. They were college-educated, polished, politically savvy. She was a mechanic from rural Michigan who was more comfortable with a wrench than a briefing slide. But Walters was persistent, and Rachel trusted him. So she started taking college classes, one at a time, squeezing them in between shifts and deployments. It took her 4 years to complete her bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering. During those 4 years, she was also promoted to staff sergeant, then technical sergeant. She led teams, managed complex maintenance operations, and continued to deploy to combat zones. By the time she applied for officer training school, Rachel had 8 years of enlisted experience, a college degree, and a reputation as one of the best weapons technicians in the Air Force. She was accepted. Officer training school at Maxwell Air Force Base in Alabama was different from anything Rachel had experienced. It wasn't about technical skills or physical prowess. It was about leadership, communication, and strategic thinking. Rachel struggled at first. She was used to doing, not discussing. She was used to hands-on work, not theoretical frameworks. But she adapted, she learned, and she graduated in the middle of her class, which was respectable if not outstanding. She was commissioned as a second lieutenant and assigned back to Davis-Monthan, this time as a maintenance officer. The transition from enlisted to officer was harder than Rachel expected. She had credibility with the enlisted airmen because of her background, but some of her fellow officers saw her as less qualified because she hadn't gone through ROTC or the Air Force Academy. And then there was the gender issue. Rachel had dealt with bias as an enlisted woman, but as a female officer in aircraft maintenance, the scrutiny was different, more subtle, more insidious. Male officers questioned her technical decisions, even when she had years more hands-on experience. Senior leaders assumed she was better suited for administrative roles than operational leadership. And more than once, she overheard comments suggesting that she had only been promoted because the Air Force needed to meet diversity quotas. Each instance chipped away at her confidence, made her question whether she belonged. But Rachel kept working, kept proving herself, kept showing up. She took on the hardest assignments. She volunteered for deployments. She mentored junior airmen and officers, and slowly, grudgingly, she earned respect. 5 years after commissioning, Rachel was promoted to captain and given her current role, officer in charge of weapons systems maintenance for the 355th Wing. It was a significant responsibility. She oversaw the maintenance of gun systems, missiles, and bombs for dozens of aircraft. Lives depended on her decisions every single day. And she was good at it, maybe the best the Air Force had in that specialty. But now, with the news of her promotion to major and the new assignment, Rachel found herself at a crossroads. She could accept the promotion, take the command position, and continue climbing the leadership ladder. It was what she had worked for, what everyone expected. Or she could stay where she was, continue doing the technical work she loved, and give up on the idea of higher leadership. The choice should have been easy, but it wasn't. Because Rachel had never been entirely sure why she was doing any of this. Was it to prove herself, to break barriers, to serve her country? Or was it because she didn't know how to do anything else? As Rachel walked through the hangar that afternoon, checking on her team, watching them work with skill and dedication, she realized that Chief Walters was right about one thing. She was hiding in technical work because it was safer than leadership, hiding behind machines because they were easier than people. But the question remained, what would happen if she stopped hiding? The next few weeks passed in a blur of routine maintenance, training exercises, and preparation for change. Rachel threw herself into her work, trying not to think too much about the upcoming promotion and assignment. But the news had spread throughout the base. People congratulated her. Some seemed genuinely happy. Others offered congratulations that felt hollow, tinged with envy or skepticism. One afternoon, Rachel was in her office reviewing maintenance reports when there was a knock on her door. "Come in," she called. Second Lieutenant Jackson Reeves stood in the doorway, looking considerably more humble than the last time she had seen him. "Ma'am, do you have a moment?" Rachel gestured to a chair. "What can I do for you, Lieutenant?" Reeves sat down, his hands fidgeting with his flight cap. "I wanted to apologize again for my behavior in the hangar a few weeks ago. It was unprofessional and disrespectful." "You already apologized, Lieutenant, and I accepted." "I know, ma'am, but I've been thinking about it a lot, about what you said about respecting the people who maintain the aircraft." He paused. "I realized that I didn't really understand what you do, what any of the maintenance folks do." "And now you do?" Rachel asked, curious where this was going. "I'd like to, if you're willing to show me." Rachel leaned back in her chair, studying the young pilot. "You want me to teach you about aircraft maintenance?" "Not exactly, ma'am. I want to understand the work, appreciate it, maybe even help if you'd let me." This was unexpected. "Why?" Reeves met her eyes. "Because I've been flying for 3 months and I've been treating this like a game, like I'm the hero and everyone else is just supporting cast. But the truth is, I don't know anything, and that almost got people killed last week." "What happened last week?" "I was doing a training run, simulated ground attack. I noticed the gun wasn't firing smoothly, but I didn't report it because I didn't want to seem like I was complaining. I figured it was probably nothing." He swallowed hard. "Turns out there was a malfunction that could have caused a catastrophic failure if I'd been carrying live ammunition. The maintenance team caught it during post-flight inspection." "That was your aircraft?" Rachel knew about the incident. It had been a serious issue, one that required extensive repairs. "Yes, ma'am. And I realized that if I'd been in actual combat, my stupidity could have gotten me killed. Or worse, gotten someone on the ground killed because my gun jammed at a critical moment." Rachel saw genuine remorse and understanding in his face. This wasn't just a young officer trying to make amends for a social faux pas. This was someone who had learned a hard lesson. "All right, Lieutenant. Report to the hangar tomorrow at 600. Wear your oldest flight suit because you're going to get dirty." Reeves' face brightened. "Thank you, ma'am." The next morning, Rachel met Reeves in the hangar. Her team was already at work, and she introduced the lieutenant to Senior Airman Chen and Staff Sergeant Mike Rodriguez, one of her most experienced technicians. "Lieutenant Reeves is going to be shadowing us today," Rachel explained. "He wants to learn about weapons maintenance." Rodriguez raised an eyebrow but said nothing. Chen smiled. "Welcome to the real Air Force, sir," Chen said. For the next 4 hours, Rachel walked Reeves through the intricacies of the A-10's weapon systems. She showed him how the GAU-8 cannon worked, how they loaded and configured different types of ammunition, how they tested and troubleshot problems. Reeves asked intelligent questions and didn't shy away from the physical work. When Rodriguez needed help removing a heavy ammunition drum, Reeves jumped in without being asked. By mid-morning, the lieutenant was covered in grease and sweat, but he was smiling. "This is incredible," he said, looking at the exposed gun system. I had no idea how complex this was. Most pilots don't, Rodriguez said. No offense, sir. None taken. I clearly didn't appreciate what you all do. During a break, Rachel and Reeves sat in the maintenance office, drinking water and cooling off. Can I ask you something, ma'am? Reeves said. Go ahead. How did you end up doing this? I mean, you're obviously brilliant at it, but it's not exactly a common path for. He trailed off, realizing he was about to step in it again. For a woman, Rachel finished for him. I was going to say for an officer, but yeah, I guess that too. Rachel considered how much to share. I started as an enlisted airman, worked my way up, got my degree and commissioned. This has been my whole career. That's impressive. Most officers I know came through ROTC or the academy. Different paths to the same place, Rachel said, though sometimes it feels like I'm still proving that my path was just as valid. Reeves nodded slowly. I think I'm starting to understand that, the proving yourself thing. What do you mean? I'm a second-generation Air Force. My dad was a fighter pilot, flew F-15s. He's got this wall of medals and photos, and I guess I've always felt like I was living in his shadow, like I had to prove I was just as good. And that's why you were so concerned about your sortie schedule, Rachel said, understanding clicking into place. You didn't want to look weak or unprepared. Yeah, stupid, right? Not stupid, human, Rachel paused. But here's what I've learned, Lieutenant. The only person you need to prove yourself to is you. Everyone else's opinion is just noise. Do you really believe that? Rachel thought about all the times she had pushed herself to exhaustion trying to prove her worth to people who would never acknowledge it. All the nights she had lain awake, replaying moments of perceived failure or disrespect. I'm working on believing it, she said honestly. Over the next week, Reeves came back to the hangar several more times. Word spread, and a couple of other young pilots started showing up too, wanting to learn about the maintenance side of operations. Rachel found herself enjoying the teaching aspect, helping these pilots understand not just what the maintenance crews did, but why it mattered, building bridges between the operational and support sides of the Air Force. Chief Walters noticed. You're good at this, he told her one afternoon, watching Rachel explain hydraulic systems to a group of rapt pilots. The mentoring, the teaching, you connect with people. These are pilots who want to learn, Rachel said. That's different from forcing change on people who don't want it. Is that what you think your new command will be, forcing change? Isn't it? I'll be the new boss coming in, probably replacing someone who was well-liked, trying to implement my vision on an organization that has its own culture and way of doing things. Walters shook his head. Rachel, you're already overthinking it. You haven't even gotten there yet, and you're assuming it will be a battle. Experience has taught me that it usually is. Then maybe it's time for a different kind of experience. Before Rachel could respond, an alarm sounded throughout the base. Not a drill, a real emergency. Rachel's radio crackled to life. All maintenance personnel, we have an aircraft emergency. A-10, tail number 923, inbound with battle damage. Landing in 10 minutes. This is not a drill. Battle damage, but they weren't at war. This was a training base. Rachel and Walters exchanged glances and ran toward the flight line. As they emerged from the hangar, they could see the approaching. Even from a distance, the damage was visible. Part of the tail was shredded and smoke was trailing from one engine. The aircraft touched down hard, the pilot fighting to keep it under control. Emergency vehicles raced alongside as the plane rolled to a stop. Rachel was already running toward it, her team close behind. The pilot climbed out, pulling off his helmet. It was Lieutenant Reeves. What happened? Rachel demanded. Reeves was shaking, adrenaline and shock evident on his face. Bird strike. Mid-flight, multiple large birds hit the aircraft. One went into the engine intake, another hit the tail section. I lost hydraulic pressure and had to use manual reversion to control the aircraft. Rachel was already climbing onto the aircraft, assessing the damage. The engine that had ingested the bird was destroyed. The tail section was badly damaged, but Reeves had managed to land the aircraft safely, which meant the backup systems had worked. The backup systems that Rachel's team maintained and tested. You did good, Lieutenant, Rachel called down to him. Your aircraft held together because it was properly maintained, and you held it together because you're a good pilot. Reeves looked up at her, his face pale but grateful. The incident was classified as a major mishap. The aircraft was too damaged to repair quickly and would need to be sent to depot maintenance. But there were no injuries, and the pilot had performed exceptionally under pressure. In the days that followed, the story spread throughout the base. Lieutenant Reeves publicly credited the maintenance team with saving his life. He specifically mentioned Rachel's team and their meticulous attention to detail. It was validation of a sort, proof that the work Rachel and her people did mattered. But it also brought back memories that Rachel had tried hard to bury. That night, alone in her small base house, Rachel pulled out a box from the back of her closet. Inside were letters, photos, and medals from her deployments. She found the one she was looking for, a photo from Afghanistan 7 years ago. Rachel was in the photo, younger and leaner, standing with her maintenance team in front of an A-10. They were all smiling, proud of their work. 3 of the people in that photo were dead now. Staff Sergeant Marcus Williams, killed when a rocket hit the maintenance facility. Senior Airman Jennifer Lopez, killed by an IED while traveling between bases. Technical Sergeant David Park, killed in a helicopter crash during a supply run. Rachel had survived, they hadn't, and she had never fully processed the survivor's guilt that came with that. She had thrown herself into work, into promotions, into proving herself, anything to avoid sitting still long enough to feel the grief. But looking at that photo now, Rachel realized something. Those 3 airmen had been under her leadership when they died. She had been responsible for them. Just as she was responsible for her current team, just as she would be responsible for the hundreds of airmen at her new command. Leadership meant carrying that weight, the weight of knowing that your decisions could mean life or death. Rachel had been avoiding that weight by staying focused on technical work, on individual aircraft, on tasks she could control. But that wasn't really leadership, that was avoidance. Chief Walters had been right, she was hiding. The question was, what was she going to do about it? Rachel carefully placed the photo back in the box, but she didn't put the box away this time. She set it on her desk where she would see it every day. A reminder of what she was serving for, and what she owed to those who came before and those who would come after. The next morning, Rachel called her team together for a meeting. "I want to talk to you about something," she began. "As most of you know, I'm being promoted to major and taking command of a squadron at Nellie's in a few months." Her team exchanged glances. They knew, but hearing it officially was different. "I want to use the time I have left here to prepare you, not just technically, but as leaders, because the best thing I can do for the mission is to make sure this team continues to excel after I'm gone." Senior Airman Chen spoke up. "Ma'am, are you saying you're going to train your replacement from within the team?" "That's exactly what I'm saying. I'm going to recommend one of you for promotion and to take over my position. But more than that, I'm going to make sure each of you is ready to step up and lead, regardless of rank." Rachel saw the shift in her team's posture. This wasn't just talk. This was investment in their futures. Over the next 90 days, each of you will be given leadership opportunities. You'll brief commanders, make decisions, and take ownership of major projects. It won't be easy. You'll make mistakes, but you'll learn. Staff Sergeant Rodriguez grinned. "Are you saying we get to do your job while you watch, ma'am?" "Exactly, and I'll be the most demanding observer you've ever had." The team laughed, but there was excitement in the air. For the first time in months, Rachel felt energized, not by the technical work, but by the opportunity to develop her people. Maybe this was what real leadership looked like. And maybe, just maybe, she was ready to stop hiding and start leading. The transformation didn't happen overnight, but it happened. Rachel began delegating responsibilities she had previously held close. She had Senior Airman Chen brief the wing commander on maintenance readiness. She had Staff Sergeant Rodriguez lead a complex repair project that she normally would have supervised directly. She pushed each member of her team beyond their comfort zones. And she watched them rise to the challenge. Chen, who had always been technically proficient but lacked confidence, delivered a flawless briefing that impressed the wing commander so much that he asked for her by name for future updates. Rodriguez, who tended to rush through jobs, learned the value of patience when his quick fix on a hydraulic system failed inspection, and he had to redo 12 hours of work. Each lesson, each success, each failure was a step forward. But the real test came 5 weeks before Rachel's scheduled departure. A priority tasking came down from Air Combat Command. The base was hosting a major training exercise called Desert Thunder. Fighter aircraft from multiple bases would converge on Davis-Monthan for 2 weeks of intensive combat training. The A-10 squadrons would be flying twice their normal sortie rate. For the maintenance teams, this meant around-the-clock operations, rapid turnarounds, and zero margin for error. Rachel was expected to lead the effort, but she made a different choice. She called her team together and said, "Rodriguez, you're the maintenance lead for Desert Thunder." Rodriguez's eyes went wide. "Ma'am, this is a huge operation, are you sure?" "I'm sure. You know the systems, you know the aircraft, and you know the team. You can do this." "What will you be doing?" "I'll be here if you need me, but this is your show." The nervousness on Rodriguez's face was clear, but so was the determination. The first few days of the exercise were chaotic. Aircraft landed with battle damage from simulated combat. Maintenance crews worked 18-hour shifts. Tempers flared, mistakes happened, and the pressure was intense. Rachel watched Rodriguez struggle. She saw him make decisions she wouldn't have made, take approaches she would have done differently. Every instinct screamed at her to step in, to take over, to fix things. But she didn't. Instead, she waited, and she watched Rodriguez learn. On the 4th day of the exercise, a critical problem emerged. One of the A-10's had a gun malfunction that should have been a simple fix, but the technical manual procedure wasn't working. The aircraft was needed back in the air within 2 hours for a key training mission. Rodriguez came to Rachel, frustrated and exhausted. "Ma'am, I've tried everything in the tech orders. Nothing's working. I need your help." Rachel looked at the aircraft, then back at Rodriguez. "Tell me what you've tried." Rodriguez walked her through each step. His logic was sound, his troubleshooting systematic, but he was missing something. "What's different about this aircraft?" Rachel asked. "Anything unusual in its maintenance history?" Rodriguez pulled up the records on his tablet, scrolling through. Then his eyes lit up. "This bird had a gun system upgrade 6 months ago. Different ammunition feed mechanism. The tech order I'm using is for the old system." "So what do you need?" "The updated technical order, and probably a call to the depot that did the upgrade." "Then make it happen," Rachel said. Rodriguez nodded and ran off. Within 20 minutes, he had the right information and was implementing the fix. The aircraft was ready with 15 minutes to spare. Rachel didn't compliment him. She didn't need to. The satisfaction on his face was enough. But she did pull him aside later that evening. "You know what you did today?" she asked. "Fixed a broken gun system." "No, you solved a problem that nobody handed you a solution for. You thought critically, adapted, and got it done. That's leadership." Rodriguez looked at her seriously. "Is that what you've been doing, making us solve our own problems?" "Yes. I kind of hated you for it this week," he admitted. Rachel laughed. "I know, but do you understand why I did it?" "Because we need to be able to function without you." "Exactly. I won't always be here, and the mission is bigger than any one person." The exercise concluded successfully. The A-10 squadrons flew every scheduled mission. Maintenance achieved a 95% readiness rate, well above the target, and Rodriguez and his team had proven they could handle the pressure. The wing commander personally thanked Rachel for her team's performance. "Your people are exceptional, Captain Morrison," he said. "You should be very proud." "They did all the work, sir. I just got out of their way." The commander smiled knowingly. That's the hardest part of leadership, knowing when to step back. As the base returned to normal operations, Rachel found herself reflecting on how much had changed in just a few weeks. She was still doing technical work, still getting her hands dirty in the hangars, but it felt different now. Less like hiding and more like staying connected to the mission. And her team had transformed. They were confident, capable, and ready to lead. One afternoon, Chief Walters stopped by her office. "You've done good work preparing these airmen," he said. "They were already good. I just gave them opportunities." "That's what good leaders do. Walters paused. I have a question for you. When you get to Nellie's and take command of that squadron, what kind of commander do you want to be? Rachel thought about it. I want to be the kind of commander who develops people, who gives them chances to grow, who gets out of the way when they're ready and steps in when they need support. That's a good answer, but let me ask it differently. What kind of commander do you need to be? Rachel frowned. I don't understand the difference. You're thinking about how you'll treat the people under you? That's important. But you also need to think about how you'll lead up, how you'll deal with commanders above you who might have different priorities, how you'll navigate politics and bureaucracy, how you'll fight for your people when the system doesn't want to give them what they need. This was the part Rachel had been avoiding, the politics, the bureaucracy, the fighting battles that had nothing to do with aircraft or missions. I'm not good at that stuff, Chief. You're better than you think. You've just never had to do it because I've been running interference for you. Rachel realized he was right. Walters had protected her, shielded her from a lot of the organizational politics so she could focus on the technical and tactical aspects of leadership. What if I'm not ready? Rachel asked quietly. You are, but ready doesn't mean it will be easy. Walters leaned forward. Let me tell you something, Rachel. You're about to walk into a situation where you'll be one of the highest-ranking women in aircraft maintenance in the entire Air Force. That comes with scrutiny. People will watch everything you do, looking for reasons to prove you don't belong. That's not exactly encouraging. I'm not trying to encourage you, I'm trying to prepare you. Because the hard truth is that you'll face resistance. Some of it will be because people don't like change. Some of it will be because you're a woman, and you need to be ready to handle both without losing who you are. Rachel felt the familiar tightness in her chest, the weight of representation, the burden of being a first or one of the few. What if I fail? She asked. Then you fail, but you get back up and try again. Walter's voice softened. Rachel, I've watched you for almost a decade. I've seen you face down combat, hostile coworkers, and your own self-doubt. You're one of the strongest people I know, not because you don't struggle, but because you keep going despite the struggle. Those words settled into Rachel's heart. That evening, she was working late in her office when there was a knock on the door. It was Lieutenant Reeves. Sorry to bother you, ma'am. I saw your light on. Come in, Lieutenant. What can I do for you? Reeves sat down, looking uncertain. I heard you're leaving soon. I wanted to say thank you before you go. Thank you for what? For teaching me, for not ending my career when you could have, for showing me what real leadership looks like. Rachel was touched. You taught yourself, Lieutenant. I just gave you the opportunity. That's leadership, though, right? Giving people opportunities? Reeves paused. I also wanted you to know that I've been talking to other pilots, encouraging them to spend time with the maintenance teams, to understand what you all do. Some of them are resistant, but I think it's making a difference. That's exactly the kind of thing that changes culture, Rachel said. Keep doing it. I will, and ma'am, the Air Force needs more officers like you. So when you get to your new command, don't let anyone make you feel like you don't belong. You've earned your place. After Reeves left, Rachel sat in the quiet of her office, thinking about his words. She had spent so much of her career trying to prove she belonged, trying to earn respect, trying to justify her presence in spaces that didn't always welcome her. But maybe it was time to stop trying to prove herself to others and start trusting that she had already proven herself where it mattered. 2 weeks before her departure, Rachel got a call from her new commander at Nellie's Air Force Base. Colonel Andrea Blackwood was the wing commander, and she wanted to speak with Rachel before the official change of command. Major Morrison, Colonel Blackwood said over the phone, I wanted to reach out personally. I've heard excellent things about your work at Davis-Monthan. Thank you, ma'am. I also wanted to be honest with you about the situation you're walking into. The squadron you'll be commanding has been underperforming. Low morale, high maintenance error rates, and a culture that resists change. The previous commander was relieved for cause. Rachel's stomach dropped. This was worse than she'd expected. The wing leadership team chose you specifically because we believe you can turn this squadron around, Blackwood continued. Your technical expertise, your enlisted background, and your leadership style are exactly what this unit needs. Ma'am, I appreciate the confidence, but I should tell you that I've never commanded a squadron before. I've led teams, but not at this scale. I know, but I've also read your performance reports, talked to your commanders, and reviewed your record. Major Morrison, you're ready for this, and I'll be here to support you. After the call ended, Rachel felt both terrified and exhilarated. This was it, the real test. Not just maintaining the status quo, but leading change in a broken organization. She called Chief Walters and told him about the conversation. A turnaround situation, Walters said thoughtfully. That's tough, but it's also an opportunity. You'll be able to build the culture you want from the ground up. Or I'll crash and burn and prove everyone who doubted me was right. Rachel, stop. You're catastrophizing. Yes, it will be hard. Yes, you'll face resistance. But you've been preparing for this your entire career. You know how to lead, you know how to connect with people, and you know how to get results. Rachel took a deep breath. You're right, I can do this. Damn right you can. The final weeks at Davis-Monthan flew by. Rachel said goodbye to her team, attended farewell events, and packed up her life once again. On her last day, her team surprised her with a shadow box, a framed display of her rank insignia, patches, and photos from her time at the base. In the center was a small plaque that read, "To the leader who taught us to lead ourselves." Rachel had to fight back tears as she thanked them. Senior Airman Chen stepped forward. "Ma'am, you changed my life. You saw potential in me that I didn't see in myself. I'm going to officer training school because of you. And when I'm an officer, I'm going to lead the way you showed me." Rodriguez added, "You didn't just teach us to maintain aircraft. You taught us to believe in ourselves. That's worth more than any technical skill." As Rachel drove away from Davis-Monthan Air Force Base for the last time, she looked in the rearview mirror at the hangars, the flight line, and the mountains in the distance. She was leaving behind the familiar, the comfortable, the safe. And she was heading toward the unknown. But for the first time in her career, Rachel Morrison felt ready. Not because she had all the answers, or because she knew it would be easy, but because she finally understood what kind of leader she wanted to be. And she was ready to become that leader, no matter what it cost. Nellis Air Force Base in Nevada was like nothing Rachel had experienced before. Located just outside Las Vegas, it was massive, housing multiple wings, the Air Force's advanced training programs, and the legendary Red Flag exercises that brought together military forces from around the world. Rachel's new squadron, the 757th Aircraft Maintenance Squadron, was responsible for maintaining a fleet of F-16 Fighting Falcons. It was a larger, more complex operation than anything she had led before. She arrived on a scorching July morning, the desert heat already oppressive at 800 hours. Colonel Andrea Blackwood met her at the squadron headquarters, a no-nonsense officer in her late 40s with sharp eyes that missed nothing. "Welcome to Nellis, Major Morrison. Let's talk in my office." Over the next hour, Blackwood laid out the situation in blunt terms. The 757th had the worst maintenance performance metrics in the wing. Aircraft deadlined for maintenance were taking twice as long to repair as they should. Maintenance error rates were above acceptable levels, and morale was in the gutter. The previous commander, Lieutenant Colonel Harris, was a good officer but the wrong fit for this squadron, Blackwood explained. He was hands-off, trusted people to do their jobs without oversight, but this organization needed structure and accountability. "What happened to him?" Rachel asked. "He was relieved after a serious incident. One of his airmen missed a critical safety check, and an F-16 nearly crashed during takeoff. The pilot caught the problem at the last second, but it was too close." Rachel felt a chill. That was the nightmare scenario for any maintenance commander. "The squadron doesn't trust leadership right now," Blackwood continued. "They feel like Harris was thrown under the bus, and they're skeptical of you because you're coming from the A-10 community and they fly F-16s. Different aircraft, different mission." "So I'm walking into a hostile environment," Rachel summarized. "Correct, but here's what I need you to understand, Major. I chose you because I believe you can handle it. I need someone who can connect with the enlisted force, who understands the technical work, and who isn't afraid to make hard decisions. Can you do that?" Rachel thought about her team at Davis-Monthan, about Rodriguez and Chen and all the others she had developed, about the lessons she had learned from Chief Walters. "Yes, ma'am, I can." "Good, you take command in 2 days. Use that time to observe, listen, and learn, then get to work." Rachel spent those 2 days walking the flight line, visiting the maintenance hangars, and talking to anyone who would speak with her. What she found was worse than she'd expected. The squadron was divided into cliques. The senior NCOs didn't communicate with each other. Officers kept to themselves, disconnected from the enlisted force. Equipment was old and poorly maintained. Technical orders were out of date. And over everything hung a cloud of resentment and distrust. One conversation stood out. Rachel met Master Sergeant Tyrone Jackson, the superintendent of one of the maintenance flights. He was a veteran NCO with 22 years of experience, and his reputation as both highly skilled and extremely stubborn preceded him. "So you're the new commander," Jackson said, his tone neutral but his body language closed off. "I am. I'm hoping you can help me understand the situation here." Jackson laughed bitterly. "The situation is that we're set up to fail. We've got the oldest F-16s in the Air Force, we're undermanned by 20%, and every time we try to tell leadership what we need, we get ignored." "I'm listening now," Rachel said. "For how long? Until you realize this job is a career killer and you find a way to get reassigned." The accusation stung, but Rachel kept her voice calm. "Master Sergeant Jackson, I don't know what your experience with previous commanders has been, but I'm here to fix this squadron, not to advance my career. Give me a chance to prove that." Jackson studied her skeptically. "We'll see." The change of command ceremony was formal and brief. Rachel took the squadron guidon, the flag representing the unit, from Colonel Blackwood, and officially became the commander of the 757th Aircraft Maintenance Squadron. In her speech, she kept it simple. "I know I'm an outsider. I know you don't know me and you don't know if you can trust me. That's fair. But I'm asking for one thing, a chance. Give me 90 days to show you that I care about this squadron, about you, and about the mission. If after 90 days you still don't believe I'm the right person for this job, I'll be the first to admit it." The reaction was muted, polite applause but no enthusiasm. Rachel got to work immediately. Her first action was to call a meeting of all the senior NCOs and officers. She expected resistance, and she got it. "We need to start communicating," Rachel said. "I want daily production meetings where we discuss aircraft status, problems, and solutions." "We tried that before," one of the flight chiefs said dismissively. "It just turns into people pointing fingers." "Then we'll set ground rules. No blaming, only problem solving. And I'll be there for every meeting, holding everyone accountable, starting with myself." Over the next weeks, Rachel established routines and expectations. She was on the flight line every morning at 600, walking through the hangars, talking to airmen, getting her hands dirty. She reinstated technical training that had been cut. She fought with wing leadership to get updated equipment. She held people accountable when they failed to meet standards, but she also recognized and rewarded excellence. And slowly, grudgingly, things began to change. But not everyone was on board. Master Sergeant Jackson remained skeptical and often contradicted Rachel's decisions in front of his airmen. He represented the old guard, the people who had given up on believing things could get better. 6 weeks into her command, the confrontation came. Rachel had implemented a new quality assurance program that required more rigorous inspections. Jackson openly criticized it in a production meeting. "This is just more bureaucracy," he said. "More paperwork that takes time away from actual maintenance." "Master Sergeant, these inspections are designed to catch errors before they become safety issues," Rachel replied calmly. "We've been doing this job for years without these extra checks. We don't need someone who's been here 6 weeks telling us we're doing it wrong." The room went silent. This was the moment Rachel had been preparing for. She could back down, try to smooth things over, avoid the conflict. That's what the old Rachel might have done. Instead, she said, "Step outside with me, Master Sergeant." In the hallway, away from the others, Rachel faced Jackson. "Master Sergeant Jackson, I respect your experience and your dedication to this squadron. But I'm the commander, and when you undermine me in front of the airmen, you undermine the entire chain of command. You want my honest opinion, ma'am. I think you're trying to fix things that aren't broken and ignoring the real problems." "What are the real problems?" "We don't have enough people. We don't have proper equipment. We're being asked to do an impossible job with inadequate resources. Your quality checks don't fix any of that. Rachel took a breath. You're absolutely right. Those are real problems and I'm working on them. I've submitted 3 separate requests for additional manning. I fought to get funding for new equipment. But those things take time. And in the meantime, we're drowning. In the meantime, we prevent the kind of error that almost killed a pilot 2 months ago, Rachel said firmly. I will not compromise on safety, not ever. If that makes me unpopular, I'll accept that. Jackson's expression shifted slightly. The incident with Lieutenant Harris wasn't the airmen's fault. It was a systemic failure, but he took all the blame. I know, and that wasn't fair, but I can't change what happened before. I can only make sure it doesn't happen again. Rachel paused. Master Sergeant, I need you. Your airmen respect you. They listen to you. I need you to be a partner in this, not an obstacle. What if I don't think your way is the right way? Then you tell me privately and we work it out. But once we make a decision, we present a united front. That's how leadership works. Jackson was quiet for a long moment. You really believe you can fix this squadron? I believe we can fix it together, but it requires everyone pulling in the same direction. Something in Jackson's demeanor changed. A wall came down. All right, ma'am, I'll give you a real chance, but if this doesn't work. If this doesn't work, you can tell me, I told you so, Rachel said with a slight smile. Jackson almost smiled back, almost. From that day forward, Jackson became one of Rachel's strongest allies. He still questioned her decisions, but he did it privately and constructively. And when they agreed on a path forward, he supported it fully. The squadron began to turn around. Maintenance error rates dropped. Aircraft availability improved. Airmen started taking pride in their work again. But the real test came 3 months into Rachel's command. Nelly's was hosting Red Flag, the premier air combat training exercise. Aircraft from multiple nations would participate in simulated combat missions over the Nevada desert. The 757th would be responsible for maintaining 20 F-16s at maximum readiness for 2 weeks straight. It was the same type of high-pressure situation that had broken Rachel's predecessor. The night before the exercise began, Rachel called her squadron together. I know you're nervous, she said. This is a high-stakes operation, will be scrutinized, judged, and tested.